In 2017, I took my significant other to a luxury hotel in Miami, and as usual, I was paying for everything. After a day, I had to go to the hospital. I was in the ICU literally fighting for my life. The day I was to be discharged, he tried to convince the entire staff I needed to stay longer. 5 years later, I found out why. I found photos he had hidden of him and another woman sitting in the exact same chairs at the beach where we always sat. There were a number of intimate photos as well. He looked so happy with her. I also discovered a picture on my phone from the hotel security camera of him bringing roses into the hotel for her. He never brought anything while I was in the hospital. I'm quite sure he was pretending to be some kind of financially well off person as he took her to Chanel, Bulgari, Tiffany's, and more. He apparently has continued to contact this woman, and I found out much later that he tried to fly to see her just days after we got back. I'm a pretty tough cookie, but I've never felt such pain and betrayal. That is absolutely insane. Can you imagine? So, this woman, in a weird way, kind of sounds like she's the breadwinner for the family. And, they decided they were going to take a nice trip to Miami and in a luxury hotel and spend some time together. She got extremely sick. And he snuck off to hang out with another woman instead of spending time with her in the hospital. That is absolutely insane. Obviously, there's no excusing this behavior, but it's just absolutely insane. I don't even know what else to say. 2 years ago, my cousin was dating this girl for around 6 years, and we all liked her. So he called her house one day to take her out to find out that her husband picked up the phone. He had no idea she was married. Can you imagine dating someone for 6 years just to find out that they were married the entire time? I found out my partner was cheating on me back when Facebook was still a new phenomenon, and people didn't quite understand how it worked at the time. I was 16 years old, and my boyfriend broke up with me that summer. A few weeks later, he decided that he made a mistake, and we got back together. But in that time, he had gotten back together with his ex and had chosen not to break up with her before returning to me. He figured out he could make a new Facebook profile in which to be in a relationship with her and add his same friends from the old one so that it looked legitimate. He didn't realize that one, our mutual friends would tell me, and two, I could then go directly to his profile and see that. Before confronting him, though, I decided to reach out to her because I didn't want her to find out suddenly one day and be hurt. I didn't blame her for it. He was the one in the wrong, and she was appreciative. She and I both broke up with him, and he ended up, at the time, alone. High school relationships are always kind of weird, right? But this dude really went out of his way to try to make it seem like he was having a legitimate relationship with both of these women in high school by having two different Facebook profiles, being able to say that he was in a relationship with both of them on his Facebook profiles, and he thought that that would be all honky dory and that he would just be able to hide it that way. What more can you say? That's a weird one. And honestly, a pretty stupid way to get caught. I always had my suspicion that my ex was cheating on me with multiple women. But one day I got home, I was living most of the time with him, and there was a folded piece of paper on the bed on my side. I opened it to see what it was. It was a note from his girlfriend of 10 years. We had been dating for 2 years at that point. She had written him a letter when he broke up with her because she refused to help pay his rent that month. The letter let me know everything. She helped with his bills. They only saw each other every 2 weeks, and they started dating when she was very young, and he was not so young. I started piecing things together over the past 2 years. He refused to come to Yosemite on a trip because his dad couldn't be left alone, was actually code for it was his girlfriend's birthday weekend. When we needed stuff from the grocery store, we would go to one 2 miles away instead of the one a block from his place because she worked there. Dude, you imagine dating someone for 10 years just to find out that your significant other has been seeing somebody else and living with them? And I don't understand why people do these things because I don't know why you would want to live a double life. It's so weird. It's so freaking weird. And if for some reason your desire isn't to be in a monogamous relationship, then you need to find people that are okay with the idea of being in a polyamorous relationship. But you can't force people to let that happen. And obviously, it's going to blow up in your face eventually, whether you want to believe it or not. I had known this girl for several years, and we dated a bit through college a couple of times. We had both graduated and had been dating a long distance for a while, and I had a ring. One night, I saw her tagged in some pictures on Instagram of her wedding. I dodged a bullet, but I feel really bad for the other guy who I don't believe ever knew about me. I think this is the reason why some people don't believe that long distance relationships work because it's way too easy for people to have a double life. I wouldn't say that I don't believe in long distance relationships, but obviously you eventually have to close that gap. It wasn't much of a relationship, but we'd been friends for 10 years prior, which stings a little more. I found out after we broke up that he'd been cheating on me the entire time. The girl even ended up pregnant. I made a friend around that time who was roommates with the other girl and got the whole scoop. Unfortunately, this story doesn't really offer a whole lot of context, but being that they were friends for 10 years and then they decided that they were going to be in a relationship, I can definitely see why that would sting. Because for me, and the relationship that I have with my wife is very much that we're like best friends that decided that we were going to spend the rest of our lives together as a married couple. So having that long term relationship and then finding out that you had been being cheated on the entire time has really got to hurt. My now ex handed me his phone while he was driving and asked me to turn on Spotify. His apps were arranged in alphabetical order, so I couldn't help but notice the Tinder flame next to Spotify. We met on Bumble. I wasn't on Tinder, but he was. And when we decided to make things official, we deleted our dating apps together, so I knew Tinder being on his phone meant he used it recently. I kept my composure and kept saying Spotify is taking forever to open, while I went through all the messages he had sent to those women in the last 11 months. I discovered this 4 days after my dad passed away and saw the dates he was messaging women things like, "Hey, sexy, want to be friends with benefits?" It was literally the same message to every girl. He was messaging them on Christmas Eve and day, and during the week my dad was in hospice. He was supposed to be my support, but was messaging girls hoping to hook up while I was sitting next to my dying father. I had also allowed him to move in with me rent free because his business was struggling. I mean, honestly, that's pretty stupid on his part. He certainly wasn't doing a very good job of trying to hide it if he was willing to hand her his phone to try to find an app. But it is incredibly sad that while this woman was going through watching her father dying, that her significant other, who was supposed to be her support, was actually just trying to spend that entire time trying to hook up with other women. Super sad. My boyfriend asked for us to do therapy. I didn't really understand why. 4 months into it, I found out he cheated on me. I broke up with him immediately. Why did he want to go through therapy though? Did he think that that was going to be the saving grace for him cheating on her? I don't get it. A few years ago, I had been dating my ex for about 8 months. The entire time, I was extremely suspicious of one of her friends, but every time I brought up that I felt like the friend definitely had a thing for her, she told me she was nothing more than a friend. Then one night, I got the "we should just be friends" text from her. Okay, sure, whatever. The relationship was going downhill anyway. A few days later, her bio had changed to a date a week before we had broken up. The friend had the same date in her bio. They had been dating for at least a week, and they were messing around for who knows how long before she had the guts to leave me. She tried to hit me up a year later to apologize and say she regrets what she did. I simply told her that was her problem, not mine. We have not spoken since. Imagine being with someone for 8 months and then finding out that they were messing around with someone else the entire time. It tells me that they've got some commitment issues that they need to work out. And unfortunately, the original poster of this story had to be on the brunt end of that. So in college, I met this guy at an orientation activity. We were into each other, but I let him know that I wanted an open relationship only while I was in school. He very much didn't want monogamy. We started dating, and I was surprised he never dated anyone else. I went home for Christmas, and he went radio silent. When I came back, he was cagey. It took a few weeks, but I finally got out of him that he really wanted an exclusive girlfriend committed only to him, and that he'd connected with a high school crush over vacation and was dating her. Okay, we agreed to just be friends. Fast forward a few weeks, and I'm talking with a mutual college friend who burst out that she was dating him, that it was a long time coming after a semester of flirting, and how he wanted to wait to tell people, but she was so happy she needed to tell someone. I was confused. Later, I asked him about his girlfriend back home, and he told me that it didn't work out actually, and would I like to hook up that weekend? Huh? Sounds like dude needs to get his priorities straight and he needs to figure out who he wants to be with and in what fashion he wants to be with them. But he also needs to just figure out how to be honest with the people that he is seeing. There's no reason to play games with people. If you can't figure out what you want, then you shouldn't be dragging other people through that decision making process. Take some time to yourself before you even see anybody, let alone try to commit to somebody. We were together for 6 years when I found out. I decided last year to go back to school for nursing. I was visiting his place and in a different room studying for finals and overheard him talking on the phone while watching TV. He was definitely wine drunk. I went to go sit next to him and could hear a female voice. He quickly ended the call, and when I asked who he was talking to, he said it was his guy friend. The next week, the end of March, was his 50th birthday, and I got him a nice bottle of whiskey knowing he'd get drunk and pass out. I took his phone and saw all the girls he was messaging on Facebook. It was legit gross. He'd messaged different girls asking them to show him their blank like he was a freaking 12-year-old. A couple days later, I cleaned out all my stuff from his place and sent him a pic of one of his messages. That's when he blamed me and said it was my fault since I wasn't giving him enough attention or spending time with him. Obviously, it's never going to be okay to cheat on somebody, whether it's an emotional relationship or otherwise. But obviously, this person really needed to figure out how to better communicate with her, because if he wasn't happy with the relationship, then he shouldn't have just been going around behind her back trying to fill that void and essentially being a coward when he should have just told her how he felt. My husband cheated with at least 3 other women over at least 4 years, starting even before we got married. We worked in other countries a lot, so our relationship was long distance for several months at a time. But I thought everything was dandy until his coworkers started reaching out to me to tell me what the hell he was doing. It's been a process. So it sounds like one of them was traveling a lot for work, or perhaps both of them. And because they weren't able to feel happy with the relationship the way that it was, especially him, obviously, because he cheated, he decided he was going to spend that time away from his significant other of 4 years to cheat on her left and right. Super sad, super cowardly. What else can you say? I found out my ex had been cheating on me after we split up. I always thought he was, but I had no way to prove it. We were talking one day a few months after we split, and when I asked him, he told me he had a few times. I wasn't even mad. I actually felt relieved and was glad I already got out of that relationship. Yeah, from the sounds of it, it didn't sound like they were together for a very long time, so it sounds like she definitely dodged a bullet on that one. A woman in my college class started telling me about her friend who got pregnant with the guy she was seeing, but hid the pregnancy from him and claimed it was her ex's. She shows me a picture of the guy, and yep, it was my ex who was dating me when he got this girl pregnant. Bullet dodged on that mess. It's funny how things work out like that, right? What a small world to just bump into somebody in your college class and find out that your significant other had been seeing one of your classmates. So obviously, Cheating is something that is never an excusable thing. If you don't want to commit to somebody, then figure out how to be in a polyamorous relationship or just don't commit to people and eventually probably find yourself in a not very happy place. But there is never a circumstance where it is okay to mess with people's emotions and not just be honest and forward about how you're feeling. Let me know down in the comments below which one of these stories you thought was the craziest, and let me know if you have any crazy stories as well.